Hi, I'm Lynne Getz. Welcome to Mom to Mom. 1 in 4 people in the United States is living with a mental illness. Many of us deal with family members, friends, and loved ones in our lives who are facing different struggles, and we don't always understand them. But we are getting better at ending the stigma and in learning how to solve, or not necessarily solve, but how to help those in our lives to deal with the challenges that they're facing. My guest today is someone who is an advocate for those with mental illness. Her name is Heidi Diskin, and Heidi advocates for those and empowers parents to recognize the signs of mental illness in their children. She does this because she lived it. She's now speaking as a lived experience consultant. Heidi is a mom of 2, and she's working to end the stigma around mental illness and to facilitate open conversations about helping those who are suffering around us. Heidi, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
I am really excited to talk with you because I think that what you're doing is so powerful. Tell us a little bit more about why you got started in this way, speaking on behalf of those and advocating for those with mental illness.
Sure. It's not something I have a background in necessarily, education-wise. It's just something that I realized later in life that that I lived as a younger person, and knew as in being in the community and hearing about different struggles that especially youth were having, that I had to kind of come out of my shell and start talking about what had happened to me. So it turns out that I just knew that I had to kind of use have a purpose in my pain, and just start advocating for those who couldn't really speak for themselves. So my story started 20 years ago as a college student and experiencing my first bouts of depression, and not really knowing what was happening to me, but just kind of had to go through it on my own. And as I kind of went through the ins and outs of depression, I went through a whole decade, I guess you could say, over a decade of those struggles, and kind of ended through a lot of pain with those feelings of anxiety and depression. And so that is a story that I lived. And I kind of hid that for a while based on stigma, but I knew I had to kind of, through my years of experiencing that, use what I felt and what I knew to help others.
And you have talked about the fact that you lived with this, but you didn't really know what was going on, and that you didn't end up getting diagnosed, I don't think, until 10 years later.
Right.
Yeah. And so when you look back on that and you look at your own experience, what were the things that were happening to you that went unnoticed?
Definitely just those subtle signs at first of isolation or withdrawn. Because I think a lot of times, even as your late teens, we think that is typical teenage behavior. And I think that, everyone gets busy with their lives, even your own parents. And so they're not completely in tune with what's going on. And I think even as time went on, I didn't deliberately try to hide it. I just knew I wasn't fitting in with everyone else. Everyone else was happy all the time. Everyone else was just going about their lives as normal, doing their activities. So you almost feel that sense of like you still have to fit in. So I think unintentionally, intentionally, you kind of mask it, so you can still fit in and still feel like you're normal, I guess you could say, if you can really say there's a normalcy, what normalcy is.
Almost like you had this 2 different personas that you were putting out into the world.
Correct. And, we can say with, I think, each decade or even any time that passes that the stigma is starting to fade, but you still at that time, you had to feel like you were okay. But now we're realizing it's okay to not be okay all the time. So we, there were my siblings, my parents, they kind of had a sense of something going on, but it was still thought of as not something that was wrong with me, like medically. It's almost like, oh, you know, it's a just down in the dumps. Your mood is not so great. You know, she'll get over it, kind
Just
of
a
thing.
phase.
Just a phase. Just a phase. But those phases aren't translated to actually something wrong in your brain, you know, your organ, and that it's an actual disease or medical condition going on. So, it was just a matter of those years that, and the undiagnosed part was the worst part, and that's what you have to be really careful of, is there was way too many years of being not treated.
Right.
So it just built and built and built and built. And it's tricky with I believe, depression, that I don't think we always hear this said, is that it comes and goes. So you're like, oh, well, I'm fine again for another 6 months. You know, it must not be anything. But that's the tricky part. It's almost like it goes in hibernation, and then it comes back out again. So you're kind of tricked into thinking, is there something wrong? So, or is there not?
I know that a special place that you have is with parents and with talking to them about how they can recognize, just because so many people in your life didn't necessarily recognize and didn't do the things that could have been very helpful for you. And so, you know, I'm a parent. I've got a moody 8-year-old right now, who I'm sure is going to be someday a moody teenager. You know, and I think we have a tendency to write that off and say, well, my kid's just moody. What are really the things that we need to look for beyond just my kid is moody in our children?
Sure, absolutely. There's a clear 5 signs, and there's a wonderful program that's called the Campaign to Change Direction. And these 5 signs, they even use emoji signs, which are so popular these days with folks, with especially the youth, is withdrawn, you know, withdrawn from activities, withdrawn from your usual things that you like to do, isolation, agitation. So if you're clearly getting agitated very quickly for no known reason, lack of self-care, you're just not showering, you're not looking to take care of yourself like you normally would, you're not putting on the clothes you normally would, you're staying in your pajamas all day. And hopelessness, just this feeling of, you know, what's the point of me getting up and walking out about my day. And not just those signs there, and then they're there because we could say a teenager could typically have those signs, and then we want to look for a prolonged sense of those. You know, if they persist more than a week or 2 or 3, you know, and that's what you want to clearly define, and that's when you want to take action. If you see those persist, you can have a few days. You know, if you fail a test that you really wanted to do well on, and you're sad for a day, I wouldn't worry. It's that sadness prolonging and sticking with you. So parents have to be really aware of those things to look for.
And you said when you see them, and you see them for a long time, to take action. What kind of action as parents can we take?
I don't, when I say action, definitely talking to your child is important, but you don't want to end there. And I would love to like clearly say, you know, you don't want to just end there. You really, I feel you need to see a doctor, because I think just having a chat and saying that, because they could just say to you, no, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'll be fine, I'll get over it.
Oh, Mom, you know, seriously, leave me alone.
Leave me alone. Because then you could take that and say, all right, well, you know, okay, all right. It's better safe than sorry. Just see a psychologist or a psychiatrist. The psychologist is probably best. You can see your family doctor, and they can suggest and recommend you go further. But if you feel that if your family doctor leaves it, you know, as well, let's just check this out, and you don't feel satisfied, I think you definitely should go the route of the psychologist, psychiatrist, just to get that check, just to see, and just to make sure that everything is fine, and if something is there, then you can go further, and if you have to get treatment. You know,
talk about we need to treat this as a disease, because it's a disease. It's not just something in your head, it's in your brain. And I think that's an important part when you talk about the work that you do and in empowering people, you know, and ending the stigma. It's something that not everyone still takes seriously out there.
They don't, because they truly think that because I think it's our behavior, right? It's our mood. So we don't truly still think that this could be a disease or a medical condition.
Right.
So if we are changing this and we think of mental health to be maybe brain health, or brain disorders, brain illnesses, because it is affecting, it's a true imbalance in your brain. It's an imbalance of chemicals in your brain. That's what it is for me. That's what it, So if we look at it like that and completely say, okay, this is what this is, we can stop saying it's a character flaw, it's a just, it's a bad mood. And if we commit to that in our heads, that this is a brain disease, then we'll be able to treat it as such and take it seriously.
And you advocate for it being a regular part of your healthcare regimen. Just like you get your blood pressure checked, just like you get your cholesterol checked, you need...
Check up from the neck up.
I love that phrase.
Check up from the neck up. And that is truly what we have to look at. You're going to your pediatrician for your shots and your regular checkups. Let's just get... Because the earlier detection we have on this, the better. I mean, you could have a child who is suffering even in elementary school and maybe very, very, very mild. But as it builds and builds, and we don't know this until high school or college, they're much further along the spectrum than if we had just got that checkup from the neck up earlier on. And, and that's the key to being proactive. We just need to notice these things on an early side, and then we can be much farther ahead in the game.
And keeping on it too, because I know that sometimes finding a diagnosis and finding the right psychologist for you or a loved one can be difficult.
Sure. There's going to be just different people you engage with, and one might not be right for the other. And especially if it comes to the fact of medications, there's a lot of different medications out there, just like there are for other diseases. So you have to just trial and error. I hear a lot of people say, well, that just didn't work, and that's it. I can fight this on my own. But you have to give it a chance. I mean, medications changed my life completely, and therapy. So you just have to give it a chance and completely. That's what's going to be best for healthier you.
I love the title that you have, lived experience consultant, because you're speaking from your heart about what happened with you, and so important. So tell us a little bit more about your work in this field.
So it does come from a place of passion, because it did happen to me and I did struggle for so long. So being a parent now, because all those things happened to me prior to being a parent, I look at my two young sons and know, as much as I possibly can, I don't want them to suffer, God willing. So, we look at workshops and for parents, for youth, for teachers, to get that dialogue going. And I also like to call, even more of a roundtable discussion. So it's not where you're just listening to the facts and the information, but where we can talk about what especially to diminish stigma. So we offer roundtable discussions also, so we can kind of fight out those kind of ideas and those old thoughts, and get a good dialogue going. So and in church settings and school settings. So I'm just looking to take my story, and especially since a personal story can really relate to others and can say, if she got through it, I can too. So we offer speaking engagements and workshops and roundtable discussions and even one-on-one consultations, just so you can kind of get that sense of, okay, this person really went through this and I can learn from this person.
That's so powerful, and helps people feel less alone. Well, Heidi, thank you. I appreciate you being here and sharing so much with us, and you're brave, so brave in sharing this. So I think it's so important. So thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
And if anyone wants to get in touch with you, I think the best way is your email.
Heidi at HeidiDiskin.com. We have a website that will be up and alive in a couple weeks, HeidiDiskin.com. And a Facebook page that will also be up, Silence No Longer, also.
Wonderful. And can reach out to you for more information about these workshops, speaking engagements, or anything else that is offered. Well, thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Such important information. We're going to have links to all of those things on our Facebook page as well. You're familiar with it, I'm sure. It's facebook.com/mom-to-mom TV. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day and be well.